Okay. Let us continue, everybody! Brewing the base color. Dang it. I didn't see my mouse. Okay. Audley, could you inform Mother that I'm back in Erranfest? I asked while sipping Riarda's tea. Let her know that once I'm done a few errands, I will return home to discuss matters with Aurelia. At once. I am told you intend to go to your library tomorrow, Riarda said. How fair are your belongings there, milady? Should I arrange for servants and carriages to transport them? No, Brewing should take priority tomorrow. I expect my belongings to be packed, but I won't discuss moving them with Losfam until the day after. Inner chambers in the temple? The plan was always for me to leave Erranfest after the Archduke Conference, so they're mostly empty. We can take care of whatever remains when I go there next. There were still things I needed to fetch from there, here, and my library. I also had to decide when to bring my out-of-season clothes and make sure there weren't any issues with my newest attire. We have returned, Lady Rosamund. I was still working out my schedule of my attendants when my other retainers returned, having finished their introductions and icebreaker. Cornelius, Hartman, and Roderick are staying in Alexandria, Lenore reported. Cornelius will take over from Lorenz and Matthias when it comes time for them to move, and Hartman will return to replace Clarissa. Huh? I could have swore that Hartman and Clarissa were together, right? My eyes widened in shock. Were we not going to spend tomorrow brewing the base dye and finalizing Alexandria's crest? I wasn't even allowed to touch the ladder, so how was I meant to proceed without Hartman, my head scholar? Clarissa, why is Hartman of all people not here, I asked. Wasn't he going to brew and draw the crest? As your head scholar, Hartman wishes to review as many documents as he can before the Archduke Conference. I was asked to support you in his place. Because we were from Erranfest, we only had a surface-level understanding of the duchy now known as Alexandria. To help remedy this, I'd recently taken on new retainers from among old Arensbach's nobles. Candidates whom Ferdinand and my retainers had deemed to be safe and well-intentioned. Among them were scholars who had served the late Archduke Giselfried. I'm assuming that's the Archduke before he died and Georgina and the others took over. And supported Ferdinand with his work. It is a known fact that Hartman is highly competent, Clarissa continued. From the perspective of an Alexandrian scholar, however, he lacks even basic knowledge about the duchy. He aims to remedy that, or else he will struggle to negotiate with other duchies and will not be of adequate use to you. So he's trying to make himself useful in the best way possible. As it turned out, the Alexandrian scholars had expressed their doubts about Hartman attending the upcoming Archduke Conference with me. Given his age and severely limited understanding of the duchy, soon to be his home, they expected him to be replaced in a matter of years. Well, these are far from the only unusual circumstances. It was strange enough that a man not even in his 20s had managed to become a head scholar. Archducal family members normally assign someone in their 30s or 40s to the role with the understanding that they would also train the apprentices under them. In my case, various factors had aligned to create my current predicament. Announcing my abrupt adoption during my baptism ceremony had come first, and choosing my scholars had taken much longer than usual owing to my unique situation as a former commoner and the need to surround me with people who were trustworthy. Combined with most nobles' aversion to the temple, the disdain my methods for advancing the printing industry had earned me among traditional scholars, the 2 years I spent in a Dreve, and the fact that Ferdinand had accepted the duty of educating my scholars, it was no wonder that I had never been assigned an aged scholar. But our circumstances had changed. We lacked even basic knowledge about Alexandria. Ferdinand was my fiancé, not someone with authority over my retainers, and resistance to the temple was starting to wane. More than that, though, there were plenty of nobles who wanted to serve as the new Ob's retainer. Surely it cannot be helped that Hartman lacks the expertise to continue serving as my head scholar for the moment, I said. Is that not why Ferdinand thought to have him assist me with making the base dye and drawing the crest? Ferdinand must have told me to carry out these duties of a first Ob here in Erranfest so that Hartman could retain his honor as my head scholar. I find it funny how, or not funny, I guess ironic, that they were so adamant about keeping her as not the Ob, Sylvester and the others, besides, obviously, most people in Erranfest. But she ends up being an Ob anyway. Just not in Erranfest. That's funny. Hartman spent a long time contemplating whether he should assist you with your preparations here in Erranfest or focus on studying in order to attend the Archduke Conference with you, Clarissa explained. In the end, he chose the latter. He concluded that if he was not with you for your first conference, he would never be considered your head scholar. As a greater duchy, old Ahrensbach had plenty of exceptionally talented scholars. Many of them had been demoted during Dietlande's reign, but only because she had personally disliked them or rejected their lucrative ideas. Hartmut would have had an especially hard time remaining my head scholar with so many wise old veterans around him, but it hadn't deterred him from trying his best to earn their respect. If staying behind is his wish, then I shall support him, I said. Just be sure to tell him not to overdo it. Your encouragement shall drive him to succeed, Clarissa said with a bright smile. Aurelia must not have been too convinced because she looked thoroughly exasperated. Knowing Hartmut, he is going to spend every waking moment until the Archduke Conference studying everything he might need to know. How does he plan to make time for his move? He should return at least once to close his hidden rooms and such. He said that he would entrust everything else to his family. Good grief, that boy, Aurelia muttered with a troubled smile, having suddenly been tasked with overseeing her son's move. He could always have been patient and taken the role in a decade or so. But then he wouldn't be Hartmut, Clarissa said with a wry smile. There is no helping it. I will support him however I can. Aurelia's shoulders slumped in response. I apologize for the burden he has put on you. You mentioned that Cornelius also elected to stay in Alexandria, I said. Was that for the same reason as Hartmut? I thought he agreed that Strahl was best suited to be the knight commander. Oh, okay. The Ops head knight usually also served as their duchy's knight commander, but the latter role required one to know not just the names and faces of all the knights working under them, but also their factions and ancestry. For that reason, though, Cornelius had spent such a long time in my service, he lacked the knowledge to suddenly take charge of Alexandria's order. Maybe in 10 or so years' time, maybe he could, but not right now. During a lengthy discussion about whom to assign as a new knight commander, someone had noted that I might feel more comfortable if one of my brothers took the role. Cornelius had already been discounted, so the conversation turned to Eckert. He had plenty of experience, already lived in Ahrensbach for well over a year, but he would need to join my service first. Nobles had gone to him to propose the idea, only to be turned away in a heartbeat. Well, obviously, yeah. I refused to serve anyone but Lord Ferdinand. It would not be in Rosamund's best interest for someone of my devotion to join her retinue. Yeah. Eckert had strongly implied that he would stab me in the back to return to serving Ferdinand. What? Dude! Ain't no need to go that far. Ferdinand wouldn't let you do that anyway. A thought so terrifying that I didn't even want to consider taking him on. Yeah, maybe it's for the best. The very best that Eckert not do that. In the end, it was agreed that Strahl would join my service instead and return to his former position as the knight commander. Cornelius still agrees with Strahl serving as the knight commander, Lenore assured me. He chose to stay in Alexandria so you could have at least one Ehrenfest retainer there at all times. Information gathering and contact points are a must. We should finish the move quickly so that he can return. Matthias crossed his arms and nodded. Lorenz and I won't take long. We just have our things in the night dormitory to clean out. Cornelius has his home in the noble's quarter, but Lenore has the most on her plate with her rooms in the dormitory and the Lies Gang's estate. Don't forget the estate Lord Eckert gave them for their engagement, Lorenz added with a grin. Lenore sighed. My rooms at home and in the estate are almost empty from when we were preparing to move to the sovereignty. But I only recently started clearing out my room in the night dormitory and must return to Lies Gang to close my hidden room and say my farewells to my family. The recent war had taken up so much of the time that we had meant to spend preparing for the move. Now we were having to make do with what little remained. I really was demanding a lot from my retainers. Lenore, I said, You need not feel troubled, Lady Rosamund. A short leave of absence is all that I need. Granted, of course, but we really are quite fortunate, Lenore said with a smile. One normally transports one's luggage by carriage when moving to another duchy, but we have permission to use the dormitory's teleportation circles. She assured me that my own workload was going to be much harder owing to my many rooms, but I was leaving everything to my attendants. Even trying to help them was a surefire way to be scolded. I understand the time constraints, but will you not lack guard nights if everyone makes their preparations at once, Riarda asked. Worry not. Angelica plans to take only a single day's leave to close her hidden room. She will spend the rest of her time at work. Really? I asked. Is that all she needs? I gathered that she wouldn't require as much time as Lenore since her family lived in the noble's quarter, but a single day couldn't have been long enough to get all of her belongings together. Indeed, Lady Rosamund, Angelica replied, I need only close my hidden room. Lisletta and the other attendants of my family will take care of everything else. She seemed touched that her family wanted to help out, but I suspected they simply knew that Angelica would take far too long on her own. Wow, oh ye of little faith. Well, then again, they know her better than everybody, so yeah. Lysletta gave a partial smile as if she read my thoughts. I will take a slightly longer break to compensate for my sister. Making two people's preparations will not be easy, but I wish you luck. I ate breakfast, then headed straight to my library while several of my retainers got ready for the move. Daniel and Judith were accompanying me as knights. Felina and Clarissa as scholars, and Bertilde and Aurelia as attendants. Welcome back, Lady Rosemine, Lostfam said upon my arrival. Lord Ferdinand's belongings are ready to be moved. Despite being name-sworn to Ferdinand, Lostfam had needed to stay in Ehrenfest when Eckert and Justice moved away. A mere lay attendant without the means to protect himself would never have survived in Ahrensbach's castle. Now that the dust had settled, he was terribly impatient to reunite with his lord. Thank you, I replied. I come bearing a message from Lord Ferdinand. Move to Alexandria as soon as you have memorized these. I gave him a new registration brooch and some documents Justice had put together about Alexandria's unique plants and metals and the poisons derived from them. My retainers from Old Ahrensbach had received documents of the same nature to memorize. It had surprised them how strictly Ferdinand expected Archducal retainers to be on guard against threats. Makes sense, though, considering what we've seen lately. My retainers from Ehrenfest were also being educated. Lysletta and Grisha had claimed to have it easy thanks to all the information Ferdinand acquired in Ahrensbach, but I'd never thought plants could warrant such extreme caution. These documents contain the bare minimum one must learn, I said. Justice made it quite clear that only those who have memorized them can be trusted with poison detection. They really are quite detailed, Lostfam said, surprised to see the thick stack of papers. I heard that he was swamped with administration work in the castle, but he seems to have pinpointed every single one of the duchy's specialties. As I understood it, he gathered the information during last year's spring prayer. Do you remember when Linde made him circle the duchy? He collected many ingredients as souvenirs. Of course he did. I thought back to the letter I'd received, explaining that Ferdinand and the others were performing spring prayer. It had infuriated me to think that Ahrensbach's religious ceremonies were being forced on those from Ehrenfest, but the men in question had seen it as the perfect opportunity to improve their understanding of the duchy's plants and fate creatures and form opinions about the Giebs. I wish they had given me this information then, Lostfam said. Having to memorize it all now will delay my move until just before the Archduke Conference at least. Could it be that Lord Ferdinand wants me to keep an eye on you until your brewing and your move are complete? He gasped in realization. Is something the matter, I asked? Lostfam tapped his neck. I guessed he was indicating my engagement face to him, but I failed to grasp its relevance. Ah, okay. From the bottom of my heart, I must congratulate you on your engagement, he said. No longer are you my temporary lady. Yeah, you're his lady in spirit, considering you're marrying his boss. Indeed, now that Ferdinand needs you back, our provincial arrangement has come to an end. You misunderstand me, Lady Rosamund. You are engaged to my lord. And... Lostfam's explanation was so vague I couldn't even piece together his meaning. Sensing my confusion, he smiled and continued. Lord Ferdinand intends to keep me here so that I can care for his fiancée as an attendant. You might be overthinking it. Is this not what you've been waiting for? Do not waste your time with me. For as long as Lord Ferdinand is occupied, it falls to his attendants to ensure his fiancée is not inconvenienced. Allow me to guide you to the brewing room. Yeah, he was definitely overthinking it. He seemed to have been having fun, though, so I elected not to question him further. I mean, he might be actually right. Who knows? Bertilde, oddly, please focus on getting the luggage together, I said. You may discuss the arrangements of servants and carriages with Lostfam when we are done brewing. Inside the brewing room, Clarissa and I took out a recipe and a box containing various ingredients. Both courtesy of Ferdinand, Daniel, and Feline watched us with interest. Lady Rosemine, are these instructions for making base dye? Feline asked. Thank goodness, I thought we might need to resort to trial and error. Thank God for that. Every new duchy has to make its own base dye, so a general outline was easy to come by. The hard part is brewing the color we desire. Yeah, that's going to be the trial and error. We would need to measure and mix various ingredients to create the hue we had in mind, meaning trial and error would in fact be necessary. Ferdinand wrote down which materials we should combine to make dark blue, so let's start there. Is that so? I wonder, was Lord Ferdinand going to make the base dye despite how busy he must be? Well, he and Lord Justice do understand Alexandria's plants and such better than the rest of us, Clarissa replied, while measuring out some of the ingredients from the box. He entrusted the task to us, though, as he didn't want to involve old Ahrensbach's nobles. It was so interesting to hear Clarissa's insight on the situation. I'd spent most of my time in Alexandria's castle isolated in the Yob's living quarters. But she'd worked in Ferdinand's office, meaning she had a better understanding of his thoughts and the noble's movements than I did. Lady Rosemine, please remove the impure mana from these ingredients, she said, indicating the portions she just measured out. Daniel, Feline, chop them into small pieces when she's done. Judith, wash the brewing instruments. Even the guard knights are being made to help out, though I suppose that wasn't particularly rare when it came to brewing. I mean, they have to be able to make their own stuff anyway, so yeah. I shall prepare the branches with Gatenso blossoms while you prepare the Granaruk fruit. We followed the recipe and started mixing ingredients into our dye. It produced a reasonably dark blue, but it wasn't quite what we were looking for. Next, we shall increase the black absorbency with more darkness ingredients. Would it not make more sense to simply add ingredients that will darken the color? For now, what if we add the Cottoncell and Granaruk together? We could also throw in some gold dust. We debated our options, but my idea to add Omni-Elemental Gold Dust was quickly shot down. Not only would it raise the intensity of every single element, but it would also make the recipe much harder for future generations to reproduce. Yeah. Changing the recipe bit by bit is so tedious, though. Lady Rosamund, could you give Daniel and me some of the dye when it's ready, Feline asked. We will need some for when we move. That won't be for another 2 years, so I'd rather prioritize the nobles going to the Archduke Conference. Rest assured, though, I will provide you both with dye when you need it. The morning section of the conference would comprise the inauguration ceremony and the Starbine ceremonies, during which the nobles of old duchies would wear scarves bearing their old duchy's colors. This applied not only to old Arensbach's nobles, but also to the nobles of the duchies soon to be given to Trarqual and Sigiswald. They would switch to wearing their new capes later in the day, once their new duchy's colors had been announced. Once the recipe is complete, Clarissa said, we will need to make dye for all the participating nobles. I do not have enough mana to manage this on my own, so I must rely on Lady Rosemine to do most of the work for me. To think I would need to request her help with both that and the trial and error part of the process. I am such an incompetent scholar. Dude, if it's a lack of mana you're talking about here, Rosemine's got mana for days and days. You're good. It's fine. Everyone has their strengths and weaknesses. My mana quantity and experience of brewing simply makes me well suited to mass production. Despite my words of encouragement, her mood continued to worsen. It probably didn't help that we kept failing to produce the right color. I was of the opinion that we just needed something close to the right hue, but Clarissa was hell-bent on making it perfect. This has none of your hair's luster, she would cry. If we made it our base color, Hartman would never forgive me. There's no need to get so worked up about it, I said. Even if we don't get it right this session, we can send our results to Ferdinand and Hartman. They're bound to have some advice for us. I'm used to Raymond assisting me with prototypes, so let's just do what we can, okay? From there, we gradually switched up our ingredients and the amounts we added. I wasn't sure how any of our changes would impact the dye. I merely did as I was told and continued to stir the pot. Can you test it, Feline? Right. She took scraps of various colors and materials and started dipping them into the dye, making sure they all came out the same shade. Checking the color was much easier than when testing commoner-made dye because we didn't have to wash or dry the dyed material. How is it, Clarissa? The color looks amazing, she declared. If we could just improve the luster, it would be perfect. She held the cloth to her chest and groaned that we were so close. Never have I seen a cape with luster at the Royal Academy, I said, exchanging a look with Daniel. Should that really be one of the criteria for our new duchy's color? I do not believe so, he replied. I thought luster depended on the material, not the color. Feline and Judith cocked their heads at Clarissa. I thought we were trying to reproduce the color of Lady Rosemine's hair, not its sheen. Yeah. We plan to dye carpets and tapestries too, right? Would it not be a problem if every room ended up as glossy as her tresses? Clarissa paused, having noticed our eyes on her, then spread out the cloth in her hands. Fine, this concludes our experimentation for today. I ignored Clarissa's moaning about how wonderful the luster would have been and turned to Daniel. Please tell Ferdinand we have completed the dye. If all is well, I will start mass producing it tomorrow. We sent the dye to Alexandria, where I received passing marks from Ferdinand and Hartman. Ferdinand gave me my next instructions in the form of a letter. That will do for the base dye. Purchase an Ehrenfest cape, dye it, and then submit the result to the Zent. Contact her retainers when you do. The Zent is busy enough right now, so do not attempt to deliver the cape in person. Hand it to your retainers and allow them to do the rest. I told my retainers to dye the cape, then asked Clarissa to deliver it alongside our completed crest. In the meantime, I worked as hard as I could to make enough dye for the nobles going to the Royal Academy. It won't be long before I can read the new textbooks. Yippee! Okay. 19 minutes. Okay, if you've gotten this far in the video and you want to continue watching my videos, I'd recommend subscribing, and if you haven't, go ahead. If not, you obviously don't have to, but it'd be nice. Aurelia's situation. As my reward for sending Eglantine everything she needed, I was allowed to go through the new textbooks brought in from Alexandria. They had previously belonged to Letizia and covered so many important aspects of the duchy. Its terrain, industries, flora, fauna, and the most important annual events. It was all pretty standard knowledge as far as old Ahrensbach's nobles were concerned, but that didn't stop me from pouncing on the books as soon as Riarda brought them out. I've been told to memorize as much of this information as I can before the Archduke Conference, I said. Feline, will you study with me? Yes, my lady. Feline was on a mad quest to learn as much as she could about Alexandria, not wanting to be left in the dust by those who were moving before her. To that end, Letizia's textbooks were well worth going through. They even contained some documents written by Ferdinand. Excellent, I said. You may borrow them when I'm done. Study them closely before your move. Understood, she replied, looking up from the books with a broad smile on her face. Daniel will appreciate having them as well. Their relationship really has progressed in my absence. Incidentally, when did Daniel pop the question? Or did you propose to him? Oh, I can't wait to find this out! Oh. He mentioned your plans to move to Alexandria together, but told me to speak with you when I requested more details. I guess that was partly because we didn't have much time, but still, it was like he didn't want to tell me. Then I won't either, Feline exclaimed, blushing furiously and shaking her head. As much as I wanted to dig deeper, it almost felt like I was bullying her. Something happened during spring prayer, Judith whispered over my shoulder. She won't tell me what, though. Feline lowered her head and muttered, not you too, Judith. Leave me be. She's been like this ever since I'm starting to suspect Daniel backed her into a corner and forced her to agree. Or maybe he did something too awful to me. Daniel would never! He isn't that kind of person! I agree! He would never do that! He seems like the guy who would always stop that kind of thing. No, I suppose not. It might not have known the details, but Feline's outburst made one thing clear. Their engagement was the result of a chivalrous discussion, not some forceful act of passion. Lady Rosemont, Judith, Lenore interjected. Please stop teasing Feline and get ready to leave. We must visit Lady Elvira. Have you finished clearing out your room in the Knight's dormitory, I asked. Yes, my lady. My belongings were just moved to Alexandria. I shall greet Lady Elvira today and then go to Leisgang tomorrow. Matthias and Lorenz have departed, so Cornelius should return soon. Cornelius arrived with Roderick in tow. The workload in Alexandria must have been intense because they both looked absolutely exhausted. Lord Ferdinand has summoned Feline and Daniel, he said. He needs scholars proficient in math to help him gather more proof of embezzlement. Lorenz is awaiting them in Ehrenfest's tea party room. Daniel hung his head and muttered, but I'm not a scholar. He can do math, so yeah, duh. He wasn't going to protest, of course, so he and Feline started getting together everything they would need. No matter what happens, make it clear that you are my retainers, I told them. Daniel, though you might sometimes be mistaken for a scholar, it does not make you any less of a knight. Keep a close eye on Feline and make sure she stays safe. Understood. Feline, I received word from Melkor and intend to visit him in the temple tomorrow afternoon. Please inform Ferdinand that I will need you with me. Though you can spend the rest of your time in Alexandria uninterrupted. Very well, if you will excuse us. I watched the pair go and told Roderick to rest and prepare for the move. Then I turned to Judith and Angelica. Spend the rest of the day as you please. Lenore and Cornelius are going to take me home for a family catch-up. I plan to spend the night there, so come fetch me tomorrow after lunch. You can guard me when I visit the temple. They both smiled, nodded, and took their leave. Lenore intended to return to Leisgang, Cornelius had to prioritize his move, and Daniel was busy as a scholar, so there was a good chance Judith and Angelica would need to guard me until the Archduke Conference without taking any breaks. Welcome, Cornelius. Rosemont, of our Ascendance we alighted our high beast. Lenore, it is lovely to see you again. How are your preparations coming along? As we made our way to the parlor, Elvira gestured to Lenore and Cornelius, drawing them into a discussion about the upcoming move and the steps before their starbind ceremony. Miriella was called over to chat with me in the meantime. Welcome, welcome, Lady Rosemont. Miriella had come of age during my disappearance from the Royal Academy. I couldn't help thinking that she looked so mature with her hair up. She spent her days gathering manuscripts in Elvira's service and inspecting the printing workshops, which were slowly increasing in number. Feline has her own room here now, in case you didn't know, she said. She uses it during winter socializing and whenever there's a lull in her temple duties. Staying in the temple all the time would isolate a noble from important information, which was why Feline had been told to stay in the noble's quarter when she could. One of Miriella's many duties was to keep her in the know. Miriella, has your standing not worsened since the war with Ahrensbach? Not mine, no. I am fortunate to have many considerate people looking out for me. Those who had given their names to escape the purge had needed to be imprisoned in the castle during the defense of Ehrenfest. Muriela had earned the favor of not just the guards, but also Florencia's retainers for being so well-mannered and obedient, whereas Bartold earned their ire for being a general nuisance. Oh, I wonder what happened with that. Bartold might be punished to some degree, Muriela said. I can only hope his sisters are not dragged down with him. Is that still up in the air? Yes, and it should remain that way until after the conference. The Archducal family has faced so many unexpected developments that no one has time to even spare him a thought. Meeting with royalty, attending the transferring ceremony, my engagement, Ehrenfest Archducal family has been bounced from one excursion to the next. Getting through to the upcoming Archduke conference was our top priority, so internal matters related to the defense of Ehrenfest were being kept on hold for the time being. I am glad to see you safe, Muriela. I am living my best life in Lady Elvira's service. Truly, I cannot thank you and Ob Ehrenfest enough for permitting it. Seeing her so content brought a smile to my face as well. I should one day like to visit this new duchy of yours, Lady Rosemine. Lady Elvira tells me you hope to make it into a library city. It sounds delightful. You understand my dream? I can't believe this. The retainer I gave up is the one who gets me the most. Yeah, and that sucks. Before I could come up with a way to seduce her back to my side, she gave an emphatic nod and said, yes, I understand it well. I can think of nothing better than an entire city filled with love stories. Who said they're all love stories, though? Oh, if you guys can hear it. If you hear any squirrels in the background, I'm sorry. They're, like, chitter-chattering right outside my dang broom. Muriela's dreamy expression brought me back to my senses, spurring me to retract my silent invitation. We had very different ideas of the perfect library city. She would have a much better time with Elvira, the queen of romance, than with someone who couldn't even follow along with romantic metaphors. It might be time to summon Aurelia, Elvira said aloud. Muriela excused herself while Lenore and Cornelius moved to stand behind me as guard knights. Thinking about the conversation to come, I couldn't help but sigh. There were truly depressing circumstances. This isn't going to be pleasant by any means. Aurelia entered the parlor, wearing a veil as always, and called out in surprise upon seeing me. She took the seat Elvira indicated, such that they were both sitting across from me. It's been too long, I said. You must be shocked to see how much I've grown. Indeed I am. Lady Elvira and everyone else told me your appearance had changed, but this is more than I could ever have expected. You look stunning. Many nobles have yet to see Rosemine's growth, Elvira noted, so you can imagine their concern when they found out about her engagement to Lord Ferdinand. Of course, they are picturing Rosemine as she was before. I doubt anyone will complain when they see how much she has matured. Yeah, definitely. They definitely need to see her. We kept the conversation light while the attendants poured our tea. Once they were done and we had cleared the room, Elvira turned to look at me. Go on, Rosemine. You have something important to discuss with Aurelia, do you not? Yes, Mother. It pains me greatly to say this, Aurelia, but the nobles of your former house have been punished. Martina, Detlinde's apprentice attendant, was punished severely. Martina was Aurelia's younger sister who had gone with Detlinde to the Adulta Sevilla. Mestianore's order had prevented her execution, but she still paid the price for her crimes. Her medal was destroyed, erasing her staff and reducing her to the status of a commoner, I said. She will spend the rest of her days having her mana drained, though I cannot say where. It will need to be decided during the Archduke Conference. Oh, how the mighty have fallen on this one, guys. I destroyed the medals of the criminals we'd given to the sovereignty during Eglantine's trip to Alexandria. Martina, Detlinde, and many others had been commoners ever since. Yes! Karma's a bitch in this. Sorry, guys. I'm stretching. Oh, guys, early in the morning. Aurelia placed a hand over her mouth while my father received the same punishment. He was attacked during the purge of Lonzanov. My sincerest apologies, but he did not survive. Oh, man. Aurelia's father had conspired with Georgine and then died before he could be punished. His estate was marked, meaning the Lonzanovians shouldn't have targeted him, and his wife had testified to them eating breakfast together, but he had still succumbed to an attack outside his estate. We thought it might have happened when Lonzanovian allied nobles were being dragged out of their homes and murdered in retaliation. His first wife and their children were imprisoned and will receive strict punishment, but his second wife's fate has yet to be decided. She is inconsolable from having lost both her children at once. Aurelia's father had split his progeny between the duchy's two prominent factions. His first wife's children worked in the castle and cooperated with Detlinde and Georgine, resulting in the first wife's immediate imprisonment. His second wife's children had served as Letizia's retainers. Both had succumbed to Leonzio's instant death poison while attending to their lady in the office. Oh no! There were two of the people that were in the office when everybody was killed! Fuck! According to Ferdinand, the second wife clearly hadn't known about Lanzanov's plot, so the jury was still out about how harshly she deserved to be punished. I see, Aurelia replied, her voice devoid of emotion. As cruel as this might sound, I am somewhat glad to hear that my father has passed. I simply stared at her, unsure what to say. The embroidered veil covering her face meant I couldn't even try to read her expression. My father was the younger brother of the previous Archduke, she explained. He had many supporters and would surely have marred your reign with chaos. I, too, might have been exploited to that end. It can only be a good thing that he died amid the fighting. Blah, 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 blah. She was speaking out of consideration for me and my new duchy. I understood that, but still, it made me uneasy not being able to see her properly. Aurelia, it scares me a little that I cannot see your face or tell what you are thinking. My apologies, but could you remove your veil? She choked out a strained, huh? And turned to Elvira for help. She must never have expected me to make such a request. It is normal to be surprised when someone says she is both relieved and glad to hear about her father's death, Elvira noted, especially for Lady Rosamond, who is on good terms even with her adoptive family. I suppose. Please remove your veil, Elvira said, her tone a little more forceful. Lenore is engaged to Cornelius, meaning everyone here is your family. We will support Sigrid as he grows. Though she seemed reluctant, Aurelia did as instructed. Her dark green eyes were sharp and almond-shaped, giving her a somewhat strict appearance. Otherwise, she was a regular beauty. She played uneasily with her veil while waiting our response. Lenore was the only one of us who reacted. She took in a sharp breath and muttered, "It's Lady Gabriel." "Oh, we get to finally see!" "Oh, come on! I don't care if she looks like Lady Gabriel. She still looks cute!" "You are adorable, girl! Keep the veil off!" I see that neither Lady Rosamond nor Lord Cornelius is particularly disturbed. Well, I don't really know how Lady Gabriel looks, Cornelius said. Neither do I, was my response. Lenore, how do you know? Gabriel was Veronica's mother. I understood that she had assertively married from Arensbach into Ehrenfest, and thus became the source of all the Leisgang's misfortunes, but her appearance was a mystery to me. My great-grandfather installed a large picture of her in the primary Leisgang estate, so our house would never forget our hatred for her. Okay. Lenore explained, I am reasonably certain Cornelius has seen it before. Maybe during family gatherings, but I scarcely remember. I was too focused on all the trouble Lady Veronica was causing us to look at a painting of a dead woman. Despite his lack of response to Aurelia's appearance, Cornelius clearly despised both Veronica and Gabriel. Gabriel, whatever. That picture is why the Leisgangs all remember Lady Gabriel's face, and Aurelia cannot go outside without her veil, Elvira said, knitting her brow in vexation. I can understand why she was so frustrated with Lenore's house, considering how insanely hard she had worked to keep the former Veronica faction from contacting Aurelia. It sounds terribly foolish, I said. An innocent young lady should not have to live in shame because of a woman who died ages ago. Quite. Aurelia has kept her distance from all nobles associated with Arensbach since she married into Ehrenfest, and she interacts favorably with all of my friends. During the fighting, she donned her armor and took up her weapon in defense of this estate. I would rather that not be discounted purely because of her appearance. Yeah! Lady Gabriel and great-grandfather are no longer with us, and the legacy carried on by Georgine ended with the war, I said. Lenore, I would advise the prompt removal of that painting. I can understand having a shrine in honor of someone, but no good can come from one based on hate. I wasn't going to tell people to simply forget about Gabriel and Veronica's misdeeds, but it was unfair to discriminate against Aurelia because of something she couldn't control. Can't they just change her appearance, like dye her hair? Or something? I must agree, Lenore said. I shall tell Mother and Uncle when I return, but for now, please continue your conversation with Lady Aurelia. Lenore apologized for her overreaction, then took a step back and stood up straight. Aurelia let out a slow breath before folding her veil and placing it neatly on her lap. I consider it only natural that my father and sister were punished so severely for aiding a rebellion. My father was a man who resorted to any means necessary to preserve his status, no matter who was in power. He never listened to his wives or children. Aurelia sounded calm, but her eyebrows were drawn in a look of moderate sorrow. She was worried and in pain despite her stoic, noble facade. And what of me, she asked. Come again? After the Civil War, siblings and children of the same mother were deemed guilty by association, even those who had married into other duchies. How am I to be punished, then? Are Lamprecht and Sigrid doomed to the same fate? I shook my head. A response that severe is completely unnecessary. You refused to meet with your younger sister when she visited with Georgine and refrained from associating with Arensbach or the former Veronica faction. As far as I was concerned, only those who had actively cooperated with Lanzanov deserved to be punished. It seemed pointless to reduce our arch-noble population even further, and if we weren't going to hold the royals accountable, we certainly weren't going to thrust the blame on the innocent. So I will not be punished despite being direct family to a convicted criminal. That is correct. I shall not repeat the mistakes of the Grand Purge. I was racked with fear that my husband and son might be punished, or at least troubled, because of my family's machinations. Aurelia's father had taken complete control of her life prior to her marrying into Ehrenfest. She was finally at peace here, so Detlinde and Georgine's visit had put her on edge. In her eyes, her old Arensbach family was nothing but a source of anxiety. I am so grateful, she said, her face streaked with tears. I wish only to live peacefully here in Ehrenfest. Elvira gave us both a relieved smile, having listened to our conversation in silence. In the worst-case scenario, I was prepared to take Sigrid as my own son. I am glad it will not come to that. Sigrid? Isn't he Lamprecht and Aurelia's son? I asked, remembering the baby born around the time of the Purge. Though I'd given him a blessing through Lamprecht, I'd yet to actually meet him. We hadn't wanted to risk someone taking advantage or revealing his existence to the general public. My, what perfect timing, Elvira said. Would you care to meet him? Can I? Truly? You decided to become Alexandria just as we thought the situation with Georgine had died down. If we let this chance slip through our fingers, another might not arise for quite some time. So what do you think? Sigrid would love to meet his Auntie Rosemine. Yes! I exchanged a look with Aurelia. We both chuckled and responded in unison. That sounds wonderful. Yes! I want a picture of that so badly. So cute! Even though we couldn't see him. A mother's encouragement. Sigrid was adorable, I said. Considering his size and stamina, I think he's a knight in the making. My darling nephew had Aurelia's golden hair, but his eyes and other features reminded me of Lamprecht. He hadn't seemed particularly shy for his age. Though he'd stumbled on his feet, he had charged straight toward me as soon as I'd arrived. It was so cute seeing him in his oversized diaper. I only hope he learns some control as he gets older. As it stands, he acts entirely on impulse. Well, he might have gotten that from Bonifacius. Okay, that's cute. Once we'd seen Sigrid and eaten lunch, Lenore and Cornelius went to clear out the estate Eckert had given them. Their belongings would be moved straight to their newly made estate in Alexandria. They were staying in the night dormitory for now, but wanted their new home ready in time for their Starbind ceremony. I went to my room with Elvira. She had asked if we could speak in my hidden room one last time before I closed it. That'd probably be a good idea. Lenore and Cornelius are getting married this summer, right? I asked. They were thinking about postponing it because of the move, but did anything come of that? The moment Lenore returned to Ehrenfest to pack the last of her belongings, Cornelius was bombarded with proposals from Alexandrian women. He wishes to be starbound as soon as possible to help him refuse them. Hartman and Clarissa said they would get married at the same time. For some reason, Elvira was entirely in the know about when my retainers were getting married. I suppose there was no helping it. The decision was only recent. But I was still peeved that Cornelius' romance was advancing without my involvement. They're always leaving me out. Mother, did you hear about Eckert and Angelica? I received word that they wished to be engaged again. It was a curt letter that contained nothing in the way of details. Do you know how their decision came about? Yes, for it was I who started the conversation. I went on to explain how uneventfully the couple had decided to get back together. Elvira sighed in response and muttered what a shame it was. She must have wanted something a little more passionate. Having witnessed it with my own eyes, I was disappointed too. Angelica's parents have been informed, Elvira said. They have given their approval. That was quick. Well, I mean, hello. Eckert and Angelica were engaged once already, and their temperaments made it hard to find partners for them. Eckert was devoted to his late wife and to serving Ferdinand, so anyone he married now would need to be content with third place. As one might expect, few women were open to accepting such an arrangement. Yeah, I have to agree. As for Angelica, she wanted a husband stronger than her who would allow her to continue serving me. Given that she had trained under Bonifacius, it was already a lot to ask for. But it wasn't the only reason she hadn't found a partner. Her main problems were socializing and trying to think like a regular noble. She really had put all her skill points into combat. Well, are a good match for each other, I said. Eckert will come to fetch his belongings, and I would appreciate you giving Angelica a short leave of absence when he does. I wish to discuss their future plans with them. Neither Eckert nor Angelica would bother coming home for a conversation about their engagement, which was why Elvira wanted to catch them while they were here for other business. They were generally uncooperative, and their parents naturally wanted to speak with them before they hurried away to another duchy. If you wish to speak in private, then take this, an attendant said, entrusting us with a small trolley carrying a tea set. We took it with us into the hidden room. Elvira poured us each a drink and then leisurely looked around. It has been almost a year since we last came here together, she said. Aside from the small table and chairs, there was nothing of any note. Has it really been that long? Looking back, it was during last year's Archduke conference that I circled the shrines and agreed to the Zent's adoption. My conversation with Elvira had come a short while later. So very much had changed in the span of a single year. More than even I could believe. Never again shall I part with a son or daughter in such melancholy, Elvira said, raising her teacup to her lips and gently blowing. I spent each day distraught about Eckert and Lord Ferdinand and the danger they were facing in Ahrensbach. She paused, then gave me a small, bright smile. Well done, Rosamine. Nobody but you could have accomplished all this. If not for the Book of Mestanora, I wouldn't have been able to mobilize Dunkelfelger, use the country gates, beat Gervasio, or rescue Ferdinand, Eckert, Justus, and Letizia. I still remember that fateful day, Elvira said. Eckert returned to the Braille Academy and requested a change of clothes. I rushed to provide them, and before I knew it, I was being told of your march to rescue Lord Ferdinand. The reports did not stop there. They said it was likely Ahrensbach would invade, and that the men of our house would stay in the castle while Lord Bonifacius went to Ilgner. Can you imagine what that was like for me? Elvira had waited and waited, her heart in her throat. I had charged into Ahrensbach without a lick of consideration for her and so many others. I'm sorry I caused you so much worry. The news that Lord Ferdinand was safe reached me at the same time as the report that Lady Georgine had been slain, Elvira said. The men of my house are quick to speak of emergencies and danger, but slow to announce success. They could have at least have said a word or two to assuage our fears, but alas, I know not to expect such consideration from Cardstedt or Lamprecht. Heed my advice. Men have their own duties and priorities, and it falls to you as a woman to create your own information network. I was amazed. In the blink of an eye, she had gone from complaining about her husband and son into giving me sage advice. To form your faction in Alexandria, you will require the aid of old Ahrensbach nobles, but know that all noblewomen must be under your command. No matter how large your faction grows, the Ob must not lend their authority to anyone. Right. Take care not to rely exclusively on intelligence given to you by Lord Ferdinand. You have a tendency not to socialize with other women and to focus entirely on books. But an Ob must gather her own information from a variety of sources. Do not leave it all to others. I shall do my best. I was aware of my over-reliance on Ferdinand. It was true that I neglected some of my duties to prioritize reading. You are underage, and the complexities of your upbringing required of Ob Ehrenfest to restrict your access to your greater family. I worry that you might not understand and the importance of getting along with your relatives and thinking from the perspective of your parents' generation. Audley expressed the same concerns. And it speaks to how vulnerable you seem, Elvira said, looking worried. You have female attendants your age who will give you their honest opinions, but they are all young and unwed, are they not? Lord Ferdinand understands very little about familial relationships, so I assume he deals exclusively with his retainers and pays hardly any attention to their relatives. That will need to change when he gets married and has children. Yeah, that's going to be interesting. Ferdinand now had some older Ahrensbach nobles with plenty of relatives in his service, but it was hard to say whether he would actually make use of them. His trust issues meant he only ever depended on those who were name sworn to him. I am told you have new retainers as well, some of whom I would guess are married, Elvira said. Take care not to disregard their families or undermine the value of such connections. I was being taught so much about acting as a proper noblewoman. Was it just the norm for mothers to bestow all sorts of wisdom and warnings on their soon-to-be departing daughters? I'm guessing so. Mom had a lot to say before I moved out of the lower city to become Rosamine. Your health has always been a concern, so pay extra attention to it. Strive to live long and fully. Each piece of advice Elvira gave me teemed with love and concern. Not only was I leaving her, but I was also about to ascend in status. This was her last chance to speak openly with me. Though you were not adopted by the previous Zent, there is still a heavy burden for you to bear. You are about to become the country's first underage female Ob. Depend on Lord Ferdinand where you can, and remember that this is all in the service of creating the library city of your dreams. I cannot wait to see how this new duchy of yours takes shape. I wanted to make Alexandria a duchy she was proud of. Travel between Ehrenfest and Ahrensbach had been restricted for some time now, but that would change under my rule. I expect things to have calmed down by the time Lenore and Cornelius have a child, I said. I do hope you will visit when that day comes. Oh my, you should really have invited me to see your child, Elvira said, amusement in her dark eyes. You are engaged, in case you have forgotten. Excuse me, Mother, but my wedding will not be anytime soon. Lenore and Cornelius are in love. That isn't the case for me and Ferdinand and me. Don't crush her dreams! You will marry when you come of age, and a child will soon follow. Judging by Lord Ferdinand's actions during your... No! Not that again! And from what someone told me in the comments, it kind of looked like to the audience that he might have kissed her. Of course they would react that way. I mean, they freaking can't even hug in public. You sought to take him as your husband, did you not? Drawing comparisons to Lenore and Cornelius feels more than appropriate. Does this have something to do with my declaration that I cared about Ferdinand's happiness? I would shout it from the rooftops if necessary. Romantic love meant nothing to me. As I said during my engagement, I do not feel any of the passion that features so heavily in your stories, I stressed. Ferdinand is like family to me, and what is wrong with that? I was so taken aback by Elvira's response that my mind went blank. She made it sound like it was okay for me and my fiancé not to love each other. Most marriages are political, she explained with a serious expression. A noble woman cannot refuse an engagement if the head of her house demands it. So yeah, most relationships in the country as a whole, if not, I'm assuming at least half of them, if not maybe more, are without love in them. They're political. They're arranged, essentially. So both of the parties involved don't have to love each other. They can grow to love each other in time, obviously. Obviously, that's not always the case. But most marriages don't have love in them, so this isn't exactly new. It's not unique. Elvira went on to elaborate, bonds between houses were a priority for noble marriages, and it was normally up to the head of a house to decide if their children's engagement. It wasn't rare for a woman to reach the day of her engagement without having seen her husband to be's face. As long as the man had a decent reputation, he was good to go. If he was wealthy or trustworthy on top of that, even better. You escape the shackles of the system by finding someone you wish to bring into your family and who wishes to join your family in turn. As long as you feel the same way about each other, it doesn't matter whether those feelings are romantic. Right. In this world, love isn't expected. Yeah. Everyone around me was always blabbing about love, which had made me think it was a crucial part of getting married. In truth, it wasn't necessary in the slightest. So we can be like family even if we're not in love. I think it's wonderful that you were so close even before your engagement. As long as you trust each other, such feelings can come later. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I measured Elvira's response, considering the idea of romance following marriage. Was that how you and father fell in love? We did not trust each other until you joined our family. Perhaps we will one day fall in love. Perhaps not. What? Father! Mother says she still doesn't love you! Yeah, that's a shock. It was a shocking revelation. Maybe I shouldn't have asked. I opened and closed my mouth, unsure how to respond. I would advise you to be just as patient. Trying to force love will not make it gush from your heart like a fountain, Elvira said with a composed smile, clearly enjoying my reaction. She brought her teacup to her mouth and took a sip. You wish to bring Ferdinand joy, and he wishes to protect you on your path ahead. This is all you need. Intense passion might make for good storybook romances, but in the real world, something stable is far more ideal. Hearing that I didn't need to force my emotions eased my nerves and relieved the tension in my shoulders. Maybe because of my days as Urano, I had assumed that love always came before marriage. I mean, normally in our world, yes. Like I said. Everyone's excitement made me feel kind of guilty for not being in love, I said. Maybe a bit panicked, too, so this really is comforting to hear. I realize this is somewhat tangential, but I must ask, what was engraved in the engagement face Stone Lord Ferdinand gave you? I clumsily covered my necklace with my hands, trying to hide it from my amused and very curious mother. If you hadn't built up a reputation for mercilessly teasing your children, I might have told you. You're just going to use it when you write a love story about us. But of course, you charged to his rescue, resisted the fate forced upon you by a royal decree, and marked the start of an entirely new duchy with your engagement. How could any lover of the written arts resist? You are my muse. I simply must capture the story in full. At least stick to the facts. Unless I did something to stop her, she was going to twist the truth into an extravagant fairy tale. Goodness me, Elvira replied with a giggle. I need only start the book with a disclaimer that the characters, businesses, and occurrences are all the products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or to actual events is purely coincidental. Seriously! I taught her that! I took up the pen so I could give Lord Ferdinand the happiness he deserves, even if only in a story. Do you really expect me not to write about these events that have made him happier beyond his wildest dreams? God, that's right! It was my encouragement that got her to start writing fiction in the first place. I needed to stop her, but again my mouth simply refused to cooperate. Everyone is looking forward to it, but alas, my children are so uncooperative. Yeah, because they don't want to be in your freaking love stories, dude. I suppose I must use my imagination to determine what he wrote. Mother, copies of your book will end up in Alexandria. If Ferdinand sees them, he'll scold me and work relentlessly to remove them from circulation. Fear not, the more creative liberties I take, the more it will seem like a work of pure fiction. I mean, Fernestine's another one that's about him. So, yeah. And even if he does prevent the book from being sold in Alexandria, he cannot stop me from distributing it elsewhere. Oh my god! At the moment, I felt true fear. Ferdinand would probably be able to convince Ob Ehrenfest to stop selling the book, but he would need to wait until the next Archduke conference to make his appeal. Elvira would have an entire year to spread the story far and wide. Her competency was terrifying. Rosemont, I wish you even greater joy than in the pages of my story. You must find your own happiness before you can spread it to others. Oh boy! What the fuck? What happened there? Okay, there we go. I was like, what the fuck? Okay, I'm going to, end this one off here. I don't know if the next one will be the last one, or if it'll be the one after. I'm not sure. But I will see you guys all in the next video.